He watched her escape the house and thought he might be able to have a few minutes alone to discuss a few things. Brian walked around the side into the courtyard again but couldn't find Madison anywhere. The space between them had to end. He couldn't stand it. She couldn't possibly think he'd be so mad that he'd harm her. Yes, she put her life in danger to save another. It bothered him, but that didn't explain why she had gone out of her way to avoid him. He'd always been one to meet his problems head-on. He'd do the same with this situation. Madison had to understand that she wouldn't be abandoned by him just because he disagreed with something she did.
Brian,
He turned toward the voice and nodded at Gabriel. As much as he enjoyed the other man's company, he really didn't have time for him. "Have you seen Madison?" Brian asked.
yeah, she's with Uriel.
He said, "In the house." How did he miss her going back in?
Vivian told me they were in a tree hiding. Apparently, it's a well-known secret they both hide out in the backyard.
Of all the places to look, Brian knew he'd have never looked in a tree. They're both in a tree, together. Gabriel shrugged.
Madison is under the impression that you only want to protect her.
"I do want to protect her," Brian said, confused at the random statement.
Is that all you want?
Brian couldn't begin to describe the overwhelming desire him experienced since he met Madison. All he wanted, not in the least. He thought about her whether his eyes were open or closed. When he tried to concentrate on anything, his mind ran back to her like a lost sheep to its shepherd. Nothing in the world mattered more to him than her safety, but the emotions he had went beyond an angel protecting their ward. "She isn't my ward," he replied. Gabriel laughed.
If I hadn't heard the train of thought you just rode, I'd never understand how you came to your answer. Dude, she's a chick. They like softer sentiments. If you go up to Madison and tell her she's not your ward, she may just deck you.
Brian knew there was a point to what Gabriel had said, but he had no idea what it was. "I don't know what she wants." Gabriel shook his head and sighed.
I know you are socially stinted and all, but there's an entire avenue of human interaction you are skirting around. Let me ask you this.
He paused.
If you walked in the room and saw Madison in my arms, her chest pressed up against mine, how would you react?
Before the image could fully form in his mind, Brian balled up his fist and sent it crashing into Gabriel's face. Anger overwhelmed him until his vision became hazed with a red tinge, and bloodlust exploded in his veins.
You have some kick-ass reflexes there, buddy.
Gabriel took a step back and pinched his nose. The bone made a sickening popping sound as he readjusted it.
That feeling in the pit of your stomach is called jealousy. You can't stand the idea of another man touching a woman you want.
Brian calmed down enough to take in what he said. "I hit you," he said in awe.
Right now, jealousy is not a male emotion, though we display it more. Now, chew on this for a moment. You are standing on the front steps and a beautiful young woman wishes to express her gratitude for your heroic efforts that she sees as having saved her life. She hugs you, wraps her arms around you tight, and you return the gesture. Innocent, right? Then Madison happens to open the door and see the man she's interested in with another chick in his arms.
The impact of his words hit Brian with tremendous force. Madison wasn't avoiding him because she didn't want to hear a lecture on personal safety. She was angry. It never occurred to him, not once, she would think anything of the hug he and Abigail exchanged. He sure didn't. "She didn't punch Abigail in the face," Brian said. Did that mean she didn't feel the same level of jealousy as he did? All Gabriel had done was say it. Madison had seen the interaction.
Women don't generally respond with violence. We hit things, they cry.
"I made her cry." Brian's guilt roared up just as quickly as his jealousy had moments before. The idea he caused her pain wounded him.
I don't know if she cried, I was generalizing. Look, here's my entire point to this whole conversation. Decide how you feel and tell her because you are leaving her to think for you. It is my duty as a member of the male species to inform you that if you let a woman think for you, they'll screw it up every time.
Gabriel put his hand on Brian's shoulder and smirked.
Though you do a pretty good job of screwing it up all on your own, Madison might improve your thought processes. Chicks dig flowers.
Then he walked away. Brian set out to find Madison. He had no idea how much time had passed while he looked for the confounding woman. The sun began to set. Women may confuse him. They might even make him question their sanity, but Madison would know here and now that he had no desire whatsoever to have another woman pressed against him. Now, Madison pressed up against him was a different story. He arrived in the house and marched straight to her room. He lifted his hand to knock and decided against giving her the opportunity to hide. At least there were no trees in there. He put his hand on the doorknob and turned it. With a firm push, he opened the door and walked in. She gasped as he closed the door behind him. Brian's mouth fell open as he stared at her. His mind went blank at the sight of her in nothing but a white terracloth towel, the soft curve of her shoulders that connected to the slope of her neck, her petite bare legs that ran down to her painted toenails. Her wet blonde hair lay against her head, and he wanted nothing more than to touch her.
Stop staring.
She commanded. He tried to turn away. The polite thing to do would have been to leave, but he found he couldn't move. His feet had turned to stone, and he couldn't do anything but gaze at the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "I'm sorry," he whispered, though he wasn't quite sure he meant it. "You are beautiful."
I'll be right back.
She darted into the adjacent bathroom, as if the hounds of hell were nipping at her heels. Well, that moment hadn't gone at all like he'd envisioned. He wanted to talk to her, to end her desire to avoid him. Instead, he burst into her room, uninvited, and gawked at her like a man who had never seen a naked woman. He'd seen them without their clothes on before, but none had ever held a candle to how spectacular Madison looked. She returned, to his dismay fully covered in a robe with a fluffy towel on her hair. "I'm sorry, I should have knocked," he said after his mind returned from its fogged state.
That would have been the polite thing to do. What did you want?
She asked as she began to dry her hair. "You were avoiding me and I couldn't stand it. If you are angry with me, yell at me. If you want, you can even punch me right in the nose." He could attest it worked quite well to release aggression.
Oh, Brian.
She sighed.
I'm not mad at you, I just don't know what to think about us, or even if there is an us.
Madison sat down on her bed. "Do you want there to be an us, I mean?" He asked and prayed she gave a positive response.
Do you?
She asked, "I want to spend the rest of my life making you smile. I would be content to hear your laughter as often as you saw fit to share it with me. I'll admit I have no experience with human relationships, but I know I would be very upset if you walked away from me and didn't look back." He should have brought her flowers. Gabriel said women liked them. Why didn't he bring flowers?
That's the sweetest thing anyone has ever said to me.
Her voice cracked as she spoke. To his dismay, tears fell from her eyes down her cheeks. He'd made her cry. What did he say wrong? The flowers, it had to be the flowers. "Please don't cry, I can get flowers." The wet sheen to her eyes disappeared as she blinked and looked up at him with a confused expression.
Flowers?
She asked. Gabriel said women liked flowers, and you got upset because Abigail hugged me. Madison laughed, and the sound soothed him as nothing else could.
Remind me to thank Gabriel for his guidance. I was more upset because I don't want to compete with someone who met you first. It would break my heart to have some woman come between us. If you two already had some connection, then I didn't want to be the woman who tried to ruin it.
Gabriel's logic made much more sense. He had no idea what she meant. Abigail is someone I met hours before I met you. I took her to the hospital to ensure nothing else would happen to her.
So you don't have feelings for her?
Madison asked. I think of her as I would one of my wards.
Is that what you think of me?
You are not my ward.